Estamos começando aqui mais um vídeo do canal Progland, mais uma entrevista para lá de especial, uma entrevista internacional, na nossa série de entrevistas internacionais. Dessa vez vai ser eu quem vai estar conduzindo, o Kelvin vai ficar encarregado de fazer as legendas, coitado, ele vai sofrer pra caramba com isso. E eu vou conversar aqui hoje, tenho a honra imensa de conversar com ninguém mais, ninguém menos que Thorsten Quaeschning, do Tangerine Dream. Thorsten é parte do Tangerine Dream desde 2005. Ele, na verdade, é o membro mais longevo do Tangerine Dream, depois do Edgar, né? Mais longevo que alguns membros das formações consideradas clássicas, enfim. E ele é o cara responsável por manter viva a chama, né? Ele é o herdeiro direto de Edgar Froese, responsável por manter a chama do Tangerine Dream viva, né? Então é o cara, pra gente saber mais. Eu acho que vai ser uma entrevista bem legal, meio que inédita para fãs brasileiros, então espero fazer um bom trabalho. Já peço desculpas pelo meu inglês porco, provavelmente eu vou cometer alguns erros aqui, mas acho que é o suficiente para a entrevista. Se gostar, já vai deixando o like aí, inscreva-se no canal, espero que tenha uma boa entrevista e vamos lá. Alright, Thorsten, I already said this, but thank you so much for accepting our invitation here to talk with us today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Bom dia.
You said you already done like 2 interviews before this day, right? So you must be a little bit tired. I won't I hope I don't tire you that much. But yeah, let's begin this conversation. I would like to start this conversation actually by asking you about the recent reissue of Phaedra, the 50th anniversary box set that are bound to be released in a few weeks, I guess, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I think, right?
Yes.
And I think we'll have on this box set we'll have the Phaedra's original mix, the Steven Wilson mix, perhaps. And what more can we expect from this box set?
I think there are different versions, isn't it? So is there one with the Atmos mix as well? So that's original mix and the Steven Wilson mix, which is mixed from the original tapes from '74.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's sounding great. So it's the good thing from my perspective of the '70s music is that it's sounding quite timeless.
I agree. Yeah.
This is not so much the blueprint for everything from the '80s and '90s, because you have kind of the timestamp on some
digital synthesizers and
sounds, but the '70s music is very timeless and so working because of the atmosphere and of the kind of initial idea of there wasn't a blueprint or so many bands that were using sequencers and synthesizers. You've had to find new territories because there was no music that was played on the radio, or you couldn't just hear, okay, well, what did that people 5 years ago? But because there were a few, but not common to hear sequencer and synthesizer music that days.
Yeah. I think Phaedra's significance to electronic music and progressive music overall is undeniable. It's a very important record in the history of popular music, and I love to hear a personal perspective on that, on the importance of Phaedra not only to Tangerine Dream, but to electronic music in general. I'd love to hear talking more about this.
Yeah, so there was electronic music before, like Edgar Sala, Hitchcock Birds, and a lot of things before, but it was one of the first recordings with a rolling sequencer and bass lines and like repetitions on several instruments that are creating that rolling atmospheres and sounds. And this was, for me, could be very together with others, the birth of kind of trance, ambient music. And if you listen to post-rock these days, or even bass lines from The Cure, It's very close to the 70s Tangerine Dream bass lines, and that days it was very 67, 60. Phaedra was 74, so it was very hippie-esque these days. It was very flower power from Pink Floyd and the Doors. Most of the songs and tracks were kind of short form, or even for today normal, like 3.5 to 4 minutes.
The radio format, right? Yeah,
exactly. And kind of also a celebration of the idea to create atmospheres, and that people could take their time to create atmospheres and let type music fly, if it's maybe too right on the nose, but it was like a very floating idea of music, and not just having the verse chorus thing.
I think the most popular use of sequencer before was actually on the Pink Floyd album. Dark Side of the Moon had a sequencer on the run, right? It's very popular. But Tangerine Dream, of course, took it to another level. I was re-listening to this album yesterday, and I was thinking specifically about the influence of this on trance music. Actually, I think you were spot on this.
Yeah. So when it was used before, it was mostly, and sadly sometimes nowadays, is the same. Synthesizers and that kind of music are used in a gimmicky way to create effects, and I think the Phaedra is a composition, is music, and with melodies, and not meant to be just have crazy effects going from the panorama from left to right, or
it's a very part of the composition.
Exactly.
Perfect. Do you think we can expect similar box sets or special reissues of other albums that are also turning 50 years this year? Actually, I have some of here. Like these two are probably my favorite Tangerine Dreams, especially this one.
Absolutely, yeah.
Ricochet is amazing. Can we expect something, a reissue, something?
It's not sure, and it's it depends how the tapes are stored, to be honest. Yeah, so it's a long time. It's 50 years, and it was just normal magnetic tape, and sometimes you have no luck to play that again. It's just stored in the right room with the exactly temperature. It's very fine,
fragile.
Exactly. So
we had the remix by Steven Wilson for the Phaedra.
Exactly.
I don't remember if we had a remix for Rubicon or Ricochet. I think we had a remaster of them, but not a remix of it, right?
So this was recorded in UK and the Mason, sorry, and so they didn't had the original tapes after it, and so it is luck or not. So somewhere in Germany there was an unreleased tape from that days, which is. It was not sure who was in the room that day. So sometimes it's very fragile, in even
I understand. Okay, let's see what you guys can do about these albums, because they're very special for me and for Tangerine Dream history, of course.
Absolutely,
those are tracks that you guys still plays. Live, right?
Phaedra is the earliest composition we play on concert, because I think things before weren't meant to be recreated, right? like Zeit or Atem. It was music from the moment, and Edgar, Christopher and Peter or Steve Schroeder didn't play that a second time. In the 70s, but Phaedra was the first with a sequencer line, and you can recreate a sequencer line.
Makes sense.
And this is kind of more motives and melodies that you can write down and just learn. If you would play sight, you have just to count probably 25 seconds to the next ping and 30 seconds to the next. So it feels strange to do this, to be honest, because it's very much related to the environment and the atmosphere in that room.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So to change the subject a little, I would love to know a little bit more about your musical journey and early influences. Do you remember like the first bands or artists you were listening to that really caught your attention? And what was also your first instrument you learned to play? Was it the keyboard or something else?
No, I played flute, violin, piano. So I had started with 4, I guess, like
4 years.
Yeah, with flute, and then I was on a special music school with every day kind of instrumental single lessons, and I played in the youth orchestra Berlin, but playing violin in
violin. Okay.
Yeah, in the 80s, and.
You were born in 77, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I started with the first synthesizer, but because I was invited to play in a band, and to be first with violin, because it was a little bit like New Model Army, but the synth is more versatile. So I played more synths in the band environment, and I also played drums in a swing band and guitar in many other bands, and First, I listened a lot of classical music. So I had kind of classic background. I was in the family, and
you also have some formal musical training, including the ability to write scores for orchestras. You know how to do it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. This was part of my luck to offer for Edgar in 2003, because he was working on the Dante Alighieri Divine Comedy for orchestra.
Okay.
And he was looking for a person who can very specific things, like you have to use Cubase, you have to use that sampler, you have to know that synth and that synth, and in a good word, you can write down scores for strings, horns, and orchestra. And I had luck that it was me, and I was booked for.
So Edgar was actually not able to write scores, to write music, more or less.
So using computer, it worked. So but it's not very boring things. So if you play it in the computer, you have to even transpose things that are played by horns. That you don't write it down in the same key as it's heard. And yeah, so I was booked for some months, and now it's 22 years. And
I think you're part of Tangerine Dream for like 20 years now.
Yes. So I joined the studio for that work in 2003. And then we start. So on stage, and the first release was 2005. But you have but you have to compose the music before. So we started in 2004 to compose things and the albums that we played in 2005 and released.
So you're actually the longest serving Tangerine Dream member besides Edgar, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I never did something.
It's crazy to think that. Because the fans have the classic Tangerine Dreams formation with Christopher and Peter Baumann.
Which is kind of strange.
It's strange, yeah.
Yeah, because the people who founded Tangerine Dream in '67, beside of Edgar, were completely different people.
Klaus Schutzer.
No, even not.
No,
Yeah. So
Progland was in the first record.
Album. Yes, together with
right?
Konrad Schnitzler in 70.
Yeah.
But the years before, I think they changed the lineup 17 times. 17 times.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was like the old West Berlin scene in that days. So one day the bass player was in the rehearsal room. The other day just some other but the first album was Klaus Schulze, Schnitzler, and Edgar, and then even Steve Schroeder came in, and Baumann was 73, 70, so the band already exists 5 years, and Franke and Klaus switched because they played drums. It was the couple of Agitation Free, Ashrat, and Tangerine Dream, and they sometimes just switch. And
that's crazy.
And so I think Baumann was there 6 years. Yeah,
for 6
probably.
years.
And Schmörling also 6 years. So there was many changes in the lineup. I think. So even is not sure how many people and who was in the band in 67, 68. So
it's kind of impossible to track that, right?
They had a singer there these
singer
days. Yeah. It was Charlie Prince was his name.
Prince.
He was kind of a little goth-looking guy playing also violin, and they played Interstellar from Pink Floyd and The End from Doors. Overdrive, and as an encore they played sometimes The End from The Doors.
Do we have any kind of recording from that? I don't think so, right?
The band before Tangerine Dream, early 67, there are two single releases, but it sounded a little bit Flower Power-esque.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit like the first Pink Floyd.
Piper album. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know about this part of the history actually. It's very cool to know that. But getting back to your personal history, in what kind of musical projects were you involved before Tangerine Dream, in the 90s, 2000s, and so on?
So
were you part of bands?
So I learned classical music, but played music, progressive rock and gothic rock.
Gothic rock.
Yeah,
okay. Progressive and gothic rock.
Yeah. So I really like when it comes to progressive rock, I really like Phonograph Generator, early Genesis, King Crimson,
the classic stuff.
Green Slate. I never was so much in Emerson, Lake Palmer, and Gentle Giant was sometimes too much. But
really,
but Phonograph Generator, I think this is the missing link between gothic and prog, because Phonograph is very dark.
It's very dark. Yeah. It's very gothic too.
Yeah, and on the gothic side, I liked like The Mission, Fears of Nephilim, sometimes Sisters, Cure. Yeah, the obvious ones to be at Bauhaus, Peter Murphy. But I think my favorite band was The Mission, when Hussey and Ian from formerly from Sisters of Mercy, those guys. And so I played a lot of concerts, and I played a lot of dark metal as well in the studio.
Dark metal.
Yeah, like black and death metal, and what was now called extreme metal.
But playing the synthesizer.
Yeah, I was the guy for the string sections and horn sections, and the very cheesy,
maybe the weird sound effects. I don't know.
It was mostly we need French horns, we need strings, a choir, and in the intro there should be a church organ. And it was sometimes I'm not sure how many albums I played on, because it was always the same studio. And I just came there, and the fun thing was the kind of boss of the band was sometimes the drummer. And if the drummer was not the best musician, and he didn't play to a click. Other people who wasn't so good in playing in time had no chance in the studio. So that was my job, just to lay chords on things. And one of Edgar's, Martin Kaspersak, who was working for Edgar in his office for foreign affairs and office administration things, was playing in a gothic rock band called Support Commentus. And he recommended me as Edgar asked, do you know some synth players or piano players in Germany?
So he was the bridge between you and Edgar.
Yeah. And so they invited me to Vienna in 2003, and
it all started.
And that was but I was not so much into electronic music as the keyboard player or synthesizer player in a band. Unwritten law, don't know why. You are the guy who is the one who should record things, hit the record button, don't know why, and edit all other tracks. I never saw a bass player doing this. Okay, maybe, okay, not often, to be honest. And it was always the work of the keyboard synth guy, So I did recordings electronically, but never did electronic music in that way. So it's maybe a good thing that everything I learned about electronic music I learned from Edgar. It was because I was living in his house half a year per year from 2003 till 2015. So it was 12 years. So 6 years. So if you just take probably more, like 7 years in whole, living.
You were living with
house.
him. Yeah.
And talking about the idea of electronic music, of kind of envelopes of tension and scales, and which step should be repeated in the step sequencer when playing a 7th line against the 8th or 16th line to create like a tension and then keep it rolling. He was very specific in that, but he never did. He was doing this all his life, and every instrument, most of the instruments weren't invented as he started, so he knew every instrument, and probably is the best teacher for electronic music.
I can imagine.
So that was very, very lucky to have him to explain things, and sometimes it's even hard to talk about music and sounds. So if you play in an orchestra or in a rock band, you say, okay, the cello should sound like that, the clarinet should sound like that, or the distorted guitar in a rock band should more crunchy or high distortion. But it's sometimes easy to describe. If you're talking about synthesizer music, it's not so easy without doing strange, silly sounds.
It's all about the sound design, right? You don't have a clear reference of the sound like you have in other instruments. I get that. Yeah.
But after a while, it worked quite well that we can talk about music and sounds and understood the other. So that's not easy sometimes. So probably that was my luck, that we found our own language about when it came to talking about music.
That's incredible. Yeah. So you guys got naturally very connected, I imagine. And when you said you were not really into electronic music before Tangerine Dream, and do you remember when was the first time you heard the music of Tangerine Dream? You remember your first impressions of the music? How it hit you? Maybe the first track you heard? I don't know.
The fun thing I had in greatest hits, best of thing. Tangerine Dream, which
greatest hits. Tangerine Dream is kind of a weird thing. I don't know.
Exactly. I just bought it in the record shop, in maybe mid-90s, and even I brought it once to the studio, and then it came out that it wasn't even an official release. It was a bootleg of something.
It was a bootleg.
So that was my first Tangerine Dream record, and probably the first track was probably obviously maybe
it's hard to remember. I think. Yeah.
No. In German television, I think it could be White Eagle.
White Eagle, okay.
And Love on the Real Train.
That's a greatest hit. Yeah.
Yeah, because of the movies. There's so many movies where licensing Love on the Real Train from Risky Business. So probably this was the first track I heard. Maybe I didn't know that this was Tangerine Dream. So
okay.
but I really loved his interviews before. So I was not so that was the reason I bought some albums. Edgar was very edgy in doing interviews.
What do you mean?
So it was very in the synthesizer magazine there was multi-modes and synthesizers are for people who can't afford two of them. I thought, what a guy. And it was like every sentence was like a strong it was unbelievable. He really liked that. I think it was part of his humor, to be honest, to doing interviews like that. So
part of his humor.
Yeah, so it's like Bram Ferry is telling journalists very strange things in every interview. If he recognized that the other side isn't prepared, I read somewhere where he talked about his time in Genesis. And the journalists, and it was just...
he's just trolling, like...
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Edgar's interviews, that makes total sense to me, because they always sound very philosophical, deep stuff to me, There's no, like, small chat with Edgar. That's the sense that I get.
That's true, and that's paired with strange scent. The other one was like New Age music is like having two big pieces of a cream cake, but unbelievable. Okay. It's actually true.
And do you still have some like unreleased recordings from Edgar to work on? Like you guys are working on unreleased Edgar recordings for some albums now, like Quantum Gate, Raum.
So at Quantum Gate, we used a lot of arrangement and sketches and built things around, like horizontal wise, playing something before, playing something behind it, or like vertical wise, playing melodies above.
Okay.
And on Raum, and it was, I think, 5 years later, but software-wise, there was a big improvement using Melodyne. This is software you can change. And the change between 2017 and 22 was that it was you are able now to edit polyphonic material. So and you can change. You could always change the tempo, and it sounded okay. But now it sounds unbelievably good. So now, if we write a chord structure and one note of Edgar's melody he wrote for another piece of music is in the wrong tempo or different tempo.
Other tempo, different tempo,
or even different key, major, minor. You can change one note inside a chord to make it fit. And that's very interesting. And there are a lot of artists with his music still.
Like physical hard disks, pen drives. That's cool.
And so there is enough material for a lot of albums to involve him. I think on the last album was 3 tracks with Edgar's melodies, and
in the last album, the Raum, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Raum quickly grew up to be one of my favorite Tangerine Dreams albums, like ever in the whole discography. I think it's an amazing record, very reminiscent in terms of structure, very very reminiscent of the 70s, like early 80s albums, but with a very modern modern sound, a modern touch, you know. And the compositions are beautiful. It's
Thank
full
you.
of beautiful melodies. You're always on time. The song, Continuum, those are songs that quickly grew to be my favorite from the whole discography. Incredible material. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So this was the idea, to have kind of the core idea, sequencer-driven music, electronic music, but not like in nowadays or contemporary sound, and not try to be a museum and create.
It doesn't sound like a museum.
Yeah, and it was, the recording was a special situation because it was during COVID. So now, if you could say at least one positive thing about it, we were we had 1.5 year time sitting in the same room without going on tour. It's just.
I imagine this make a big difference.
Yeah, but we had nothing else to do, sitting in the same room, and only with the three of us because of the roots, and it was fine to have so many times, so much time to get into detail and let things breathe for 1.5 years. So that's
great.
Yeah.
So, and you guys are nowadays, you guys are a trio, right? With Hoshiko and Paul Frick. Nowadays, including the process, the compositional process with Raum, but nowadays, how does the compositional process actually works? Is it a collaborative process, or you get in the studio with an idea? How does it work actually?
So Raum was the first time we were in the studio every day, and
it was the first time.
Was normally like sending hard disk, or in Edgar Studio in Vienna we had 2 studios, but wall by wall, and we would like met every afternoon, talking about it, play to the other, and then okay, there's a hard disk, and then and like a cooperation wall to wall. This time, it was the first time. Not there was 2 or maybe 2 tracks before, but Hoshiko wrote her own parts this time.
Okay.
And this was new, and Paul was also new in the band, and he's a very staccato-esque player. So you have.
He joined in 2020, I think.
Yeah, he was a guest on stage by concerts. 4 or 5 times before. So we played as a 4-piece together with Ulrich, and then we started with him, and he's a very, very percussive rhythm player. So there's more space between the notes now.
More space,
but because his notes are shorter than I normally use the 10-15 seconds reverb with many delays and blah, and he's doing the very staccato things, and it works very well. And we know each other from 90s. He's studied also composition, and
so you know him for a long time now.
Yeah, we met each other after 15 years in an anniversary show, a radio station.
A radio station.
Where we were just, do we know each other? Okay, he has a huge beard now, and I was a very goth, like black haired,
black dressed stuff. Yeah.
But it was.
I don't know if you had. You use makeup, the gothic makeup. You're not so into it, right? Okay.
Not really, but it was kind of goth-like, and we look very different these days. And it was, where we do know each other? Okay, from like university. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. And so it works for us. Now we are doing quite of the same, trying to find time to write a new album together, and composing alone, even talking about this after it, is very different to composing, even if only one person is sitting on the main keyboard or master keyboard, the people in the same room, you know them and you listen with their ears too. So probably I would play different things if people won't sit behind me, because I think
that makes sense.
Maybe Hoshiko would find it a little bit too boring or too not experimental enough. If Paul is sitting behind me, it was thinking maybe it's not interesting enough with time signatures and something like that. So I'm playing different things, and I think he's also playing different things. When
that's a very cool insight, actually. The mere presence of them in the same room affects your creative behavior in a certain way, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes totally sense. Yeah. And you guys are lately focusing a lot in the improvisational approach during the live concerts, which gave birth to the sessions releases, right? That are also, to me, the sound of these sessions are also not so much the sound, but the structure of those improvised are very reminiscent of the 70s and 80s Tangerine Dream framework. But how do these sessions typically work on stage? Do you guys have a set of rules or a framework to work on? I believe you have to have something, of course, but how does this actually works on stage?
So the thing is, it's totally okay, but I very dislike the term improvisation, because for me it is too much the idea of kind of jazz, muscle memory, like playing things you learned. So we try to create and compose music in the moment, and I think it's quite different to just doing the jazz improvisation thing. So
That's interesting.
There are rules, and we try, and it's this. I don't like esoteric things, but maybe this sounds esoteric. But every room has a resonance key, where the room is shaking, just holding your electric toothbrush on the wall in your bathroom, and you're gonna hear a note, because the room is vibrating in one note. Or if you in small rooms, if you
in a church like Tangerine Dream used to do.
Exactly. And we try to find the resonance note, and even there we adapt the things for the tempo, because PA to the back door or PA to the ceiling in meters, you have reflections in the room. Surely every room has reflections, and we try to, because we're using so many delays, we try to find even the tempo, the echo sound of the room for the tempo, that the room is pumping if you're doing a bass drum. That's the idea for the session, and at the end. So these are the parameters we agree on: the tempo and the root key of the beginning, and then everything can happen. And it is also related to the audience, because you can change everything in every minute. It's there are many sequences. My big modular system, I have and plus 4 Moogs on stage, and Hoshiko is doing a lot of looping, and what people sometimes didn't recognize, there are good guitar pedals from Electronic Harmonics. There's one, I think it's called Tapetron, something like that, and you can play as normal for guitars, and you can Memotron sounds with a guitar. And it works much better with violin, because you have a more steady tone. The envelope of the guitar is like bang, and then it's getting quieter. So she can play legato notes, and the violin, or she has a 5-string violin, is tuned in fifths, so you can play kind of chords even with so most of the melotone choirs are played by Hoshiko with a violin. So
that's crazy.
It's sometimes hard to recognize, and sometimes I'm read, okay, but we don't know what Hoshiko is doing because, okay, they don't hear a violin. Oh, that's right. That's that's the choir in the background.
That makes sense. I thought this many times watching some live performances. Like, what's Hoshiko actually doing here? I don't know. Yeah, so now it makes sense. Yeah.
It's sometimes hard to and then we
I was thinking, well, I only hear like synthesizers now, keyboards. I don't know what she's doing, but it makes sense, yeah.
And she's very interesting. Yeah, and she's looping her playing, and then play the third, and some others with some other
building layers of sound.
Exactly, and
that's
even
cool.
some ring modulation things. There's so many guitar effects on her pedalboard that at the end is sounding not like a violin or viola.
And how much of this material from the sessions, if any, is used for the compositions for the album, for an upcoming album? I know you guys are. I think I saw a post on Instagram last month. I think
yeah,
you guys were on studio working on new songs.
Yeah, so we never used sessions for studio albums, but sometimes we release the sessions. So every concert is recorded.
Every concert, okay.
Yeah, sometimes it's like having nothing because the tour 2003 was the longest tour in Tangerine Dream's career ever. It was 67 concerts, and the problem is I recorded every concert, and it was 2.5 to 3 hours, and 64 single tracks.
Wow.
So it would take 1.5 years to listen to any single things if there is a hum or a cracker in it, without sleeping and doing anything else. So sometimes it's like having nothing because it's
it makes sense.
The amount of data and time is sometimes it's not so smart to record everything.
And talking about the live performances and the tour, do you think it is a possibility to have Tangerine Dream playing in Brazil anytime in the future? Do you think it's a possibility?
We have
or South America?
We have sometimes offers, but at the end
you had offers before.
Yeah, but it never worked out. So hopefully the next time we're doing States and Canada, there's an opportunity to play South America as well. So okay, I'm not sure, but we played Mid-America, we played. Okay, but it was not exactly. It was on the ocean. We played the cruise to the edge.
The cruise, yeah.
So
cruise to the edge.
Together with King Crimson Marillion, Saga, and so I think I'm not sure if it was technically Mexico or not. So because it was
maybe
the distance to the border was enough. I think.
I don't know how the borders work on the sea actually. So maybe.
But I think that's the idea of that cruises to play on the ocean, and that you don't need working licenses and things like that if we play on the ocean, and it's sometimes so expensive to get all the stuff, especially so it doesn't get, it's getting worse and worse with all the licenses and prices for rights.
I believe it's very expensive.
It's unbelievable. So that's the idea of all the cruises. So technically it was somewhere.
Let's hope. I hope to see Tangerine Dream live someday.
Absolutely.
Oh my God! So, that would be a dream come true, actually.
Absolutely. So I think Steve Hackett is playing often I think so. We had the same promoter in some years.
Really?
I think so I'm also doing an album with Steve Rothery in the moment.
I was about to ask you about this.
And he's a good friend of Steve Hackett, and
Marillion played here a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Actually the keyboards keyboardist of Marillion, Mark Kelly,
yes,
have a Brazilian girlfriend. I mean, not a girlfriend. I think it's his wife, and it's from my hometown actually. And he comes to Brazil often. Yeah. And I was about to ask you about the collaboration with Steve Rothery. Marillion's a band that I love actually too. A very dearly band of our channel. The fans here love Marillion. And I recently saw the announcement of a project that I think it's going to be called Bioscope, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Project with Steve Rothery. And I know that Steve joined Tangerine Dream for a few gigs. I think it was last year playing guitar.
I think 2003.
2 years ago, right? Yeah.
I think
that was amazing. I saw a few videos on YouTube. Incredible.
So playing the session and things like Cloudburst Flight.
Force Majeure, right? One of my favorite Tangerine Dream albums. Yeah.
And he played 3 concerts for the UK tour. We met each other because we had the same tour manager and booker in 2017, 18, and we started to record this album since 17 or 18. I'm not sure, to be honest. But so sometimes he was in my studio in 2000.
I thought it was a more recent thing, but it's
not.
No,
but we started 5 years ago. And then I was in the Marine studio 2020, very close to Corona. I played Nottingham in, I think, December 2020, I guess. And then after it, I went to the studio in Marine, and then we just sometimes he came to my studio, sometimes so it took a lot of time because of our schedules are sometimes as he on tour, I would have time, and then he has time and I'm on tour. So but it is close to the mastering process, so it's already mixed. And in a good work, we will have it on the merge table on tours, and the normal release is late summer, I guess.
Late summer, okay.
Yeah.
So it's very close already.
Yeah.
And what can we expect of this collaboration in terms of sound, atmosphere?
It's very much a mixture. Okay, in the best way, but it worked quite well. So sequences. Sometimes he played electric bass guitar as well. And
is there any drums?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's official. There's a famous drummer as well.
Famous drummer?
Yeah.
Can you name it, or is it forbidden to name it?
So I'm not sure. So
that would be a nice spoiler for our channel. I'm a drummer, so I would love to know. Yeah.
So it wasn't mentioned before. So I'm not sure. It's a very.
Big, I don't want to cause you any trouble.
It's a very big English band.
A drummer for a very big English band.
Yeah.
Okay. Like Phil Collins. I don't know. I'm kidding.
Sadly not. So no. I think there's no gated reverb on it. So.
Wow. Okay.
No. But so it's real drums on it, and
let's wait. Yeah.
so 4 long tracks.
4 long tracks.
5. Sorry, that are divided in some single pieces because of strangely word reasons and rules that. So there are iTunes rules how long a track could be on an album.
I understand.
And that I think the highest cost of one track is 129. So if you only would have 4 tracks, even if there are like 20 minutes, the record company would grill you for so many reasons, because if you would buy the single tracks, it would be much cheaper than buying the album, and you have to insert index points, and
that's how the industry rolls nowadays.
Yeah,
right?
A very unromantic word.
Yeah, very unromantic.
To that,
and you also, I think last year you had a collaboration that for me it sounded very. I mean, I was kind of shocked to see this collaboration. But now talking with you, I don't know if I know it's not anything very new to you. You played with Blue Incantation on
Blood
the Absolute,
Incantation.
with the Absolute Elsewhere album,
Yeah.
which I actually voted as one of my like top 5 releases last year here on this channel. And I loved your collaboration with them. How do this collaboration come to life, actually?
It's even a long story. So I did something for the. So I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure why. So they tried to contact us. I think we never responded. So they tried it in a different way and got the number from Attila from Mayhem, because he has my number.
Mayhem, okay.
Yeah, because I did music for the Lords of Chaos movie, the movie about Mayhem, and this was kind of a strange, story because the guitar player Euronymous from Mayhem really loved Klaus Schulze and Tangerine Dream music, maybe for the very worst reason, because only German. Well, I think, I'm not sure what it was, but it was part of the movie, and they tried to find the copyright owners of some of the 80s movie soundtracks.
Okay.
From Tangerine Dream, especially the Park Is Mine, which is Tommy Lee Jones coming back.
Park Is Mine, yeah.
It's unbelievable. You can come back from war with a machine gun and say, "This Central Park is also mine," and it was not the best.
What's the name of the actor? Tommy Lee
Jones, wasn't it?
Tommy Lee Jones, yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
And it was very 80s action.
Very 80s movie, yeah.
And the Mayhem guy really loved that album, and they can't find the copyrights because copyrights was by the movie company of the 80s. They were sold probably 10 times, and no one could recreate who is the owner of the
track, the owner.
So they asked me if I could do a remake note by note, because I did this with kind of Cloudburst and things before, and our version of Rubicon, Phaedra, and things like that. So the music, and there was never a vinyl record. In the movie here, there's a vinyl record. There never existed a vinyl record of that soundtrack. But and if you see and hear that music in the movie, it's recreated by me. And so there was kind of a premiere celebration, and I met Attila from Mayhem. So I was Mayhem. So, but I really like Sun, the band, like Sun O.
Sun O, okay.
Sun, yeah. And he's singing also with them. And so we did something together, like very dark ambient drone things, unreleased till now. And
unreleased.
And Blood Incantation were playing a tour with Mayhem and Cannibal Corpse.
Cannibal Corpse, okay.
Yes. And so after they failed to reach me, it came so, I know Thorsten, so this is his phone number, and they recorded their album in.
But they were already trying to reach you for a few years. Okay.
Yeah, and they recorded it in Hansa Studio 1. Number 1, the biggest one, is unbelievable. But and I'm not sure how they're doing this financial wise, to be honest, because the last band who could afford that studio for a month were Coldplay.
Wow.
so
it's super expensive, probably.
Yes.
I have no idea.
Normally there's so Bowie recorded everything. Even Marillion, Misplaced Childhood was recorded there. Tangerine Dream, the Depeche Mode, U2, R.E.M., things like that is normally recorded in their studio. Yeah.
It's weird to have a band like Blood Incantation.
Yeah. And
there.
And it's other fun thing is I visited them in the studio and played something, and then I took some rough mixes with me and doing my sequencer stuff on it. And then they visit me in my studio because, okay, it's not as good as Hansa, but all my modeler stuff is in my studio, and they came to me and wow, it's exactly what they searched for. And this version was without vocals.
Without vocals.
Yes, I never heard the vocals before, and it sounded.
So you only heard the vocals after the release of the album. Okay, yeah.
And it sounded very much. There's so many parts were sounding like Pink Floyd. There's a section like Comfortably Numb. There is something like a Frame by Frame King Crimson-esque type of rhythm.
Sometimes it sounds quite German to me. Many moments it sounded like an Eloy. You know Eloy?
Yeah, sure.
It sounded like Eloy, yeah.
Frank Bornemann, the singer.
Frank Bornemann,
yeah.
We've interviewed him on this channel. Yeah, actually.
I know him. I was in his horror studio in Hanover. I was there a couple of times.
Nice.
Yeah. Also, Faust are recording in his studio.
Faust.
Yeah. So another fun thing is that one of the members of Blood Incantation had an Ashra t-shirt. And
they love Magma. I love Magma. Yeah. They also love Magma. I know that.
And so it was not kind of a flex, but it was just okay. I just talked to Harald Großkopf 30 minutes before because he's a friend of mine, and we played some in May also some concerts together. He was a drummer of Schulze and Ashra and things like that. And I just, could you say hi to Blood Incantation? So yeah. And they were in tears, to be honest, because it was too close to them. It was maybe dream come true to talk to someone from Ashra. But yeah. And it worked quite well. So I
agree. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we're approaching like the 1 hour mark of this interview, and I would like to do some final questions, like more 2 or 3 final questions to end. Our channel is called Progland, which is a very cheesy name, about the channel about progressive music. And I would love to hear your opinion about the term progressive. Do you think it still means something nowadays? Do you believe that Tangerine Dream music is representative of what progressive music is or should be?
So, and this is a hard question. So I really love also Flower Kings and Spock's Beard, the old ones, as every album till 5. Maybe it's very hard, but I was not the biggest fan of Snow, and after it I was losing it a little bit.
I'm actually not a big fan of those bands.
Yeah, it's very Gentle Giant-esque, and they can play unbelievable. I was a big fan of the keyboard playing, and Morse is unbelievable, and the other keyboard is unbelievable. So from a perspective of synth players, they do an unbelievable great job. Like being
a technical standpoint, I believe, yeah.
Like a little bit like Dream Theater. So I really Jordan is such a good guy and very wise person, but so even for drummers, I like Portnoy, but not always the attitude. But it's great to see someone play like him, or
of course,
but progressive. So I think it's still progressive. But why I mention Flower Kings and Spock's Beard, because this is what I call neo-prog, and this would be the negative of the idea of progressive to return.
Some people actually call like retro prog. Prog.
It's the same, but it's not the idea of progressive to carry on, to find new chords, to find new types of
new
expression.
technologies. Like Tangerine Dream did, always did.
So it's hard. The idea to play. Sometimes it's also related to maybe complicated music, but it hasn't to be as complicated. So I think that kind of Radiohead is sometimes more proggier in the idea of prog than some of the nowadays progressive bands.
I agree.
It's you need a name for things. So even the idea of post rock would mean that it's the music after rock. So it's like, but on the other hand, every band with black clothes is normally call themselves post-punk. And you see a flyer, post-punk, disco, Bauhaus. It's not post-punk. It was in the 70s. So progressive. It's waiting for the next impact would be the idea, but who knows what the impact is. In relation to normal pop music, and I'm not a fan of most of it, to be honest.
Most of the popular music.
Because it's to me too generic, too soulless, to be honest.
I think it's too predictable most of the time too.
So that idea to have a name for something different is a good idea.
It works for that at least. I agree. And another question on another subject: if someone had never listened to Tangerine Dream before, like which 3 albums would you recommend as an introduction, as representative albums in the whole discography? 3 albums.
It's very hard. So it's 3.
I know it's hard.
3 is impossible. So one of my favorite albums.
Okay, you can go for 5. I don't know.
Okay. So I really loved Zeit, because Zeit is very.
It's a favorite.
It's the idea of, for me, for ambient and then from the 7. So I really also like Ricochet and Rubicon a little bit more than Stratosphere.
Like for the Virgin Years era, you would choose like Rubicon or Ricochet? Okay.
Then probably Exit. Underwater Sunlight has a different approach of things, like and
first album with Paul Hasslinger, I think. Piano.
Yes, and then not to say Realm, but
I would choose Realm. Definitely.
So, but it's hard. So it's. It's not okay to name a record I'm playing.
You can choose at least one. No problem.
So then it would be Raum is number 6, and number 5 would be probably. Hyperborea has a different sound.
Hyperborea.
Because it was very wavetable-y, as it was more crystal sounds than Exit.
It's different sound.
It's different. It's a little like Jean-Michel Zuluk. It's fresh, but not in the idea of 90s. So 90s is. I can understand the idea having a new sound or synth in the 90s. You press a button, it sounds so different from everything you heard in the 80s and 70s. But I'm not a fan of it in these days, to be honest.
Me neither. And to wrap things up, I'd love to know what kind of genres or artists, bands you've been listening to nowadays. What kind of thing do you listen to today? Leave some recommendation for us here.
So it's not so the trapped secret. I really love the Icelandic guys like Sigur Rós and Ólafur Arnalds is great. Electronica wise, Nathan Fake is unbelievable good rhythms and percussions. John Hopkins, this is great. I still love Radiohead for so many reasons. So for nostalgic reasons, but I really love that guy. It's not new, absolutely not, and it's not his best record. But I quite like the last Peter Gabriel album.
The last one.
Yeah, it's I.O. It sounded a little bit. Yeah, like you heard the things before in a quite different way, but
I agree with the feeling. Yeah.
It's playing for time.
It's a beautiful record.
It's unbelievable.
Beautiful lyrics.
Yeah,
the guy can still sing very well.
Absolutely. I really love the first three Mars Volta very much. Yeah,
some classic stuff. No old bands that you still hear from time to time, perhaps.
Yeah. So to be honest, I really love old some new as well. Genesis. So if I was part of my socialization, like Selling Ingebrigtsen, Foxtrot, Nursery Crime, and maybe odd view. I like Trick or Tail more than Lamplights on Broadway.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I actually love more Wind and Wuthering, the album after Trick of the Tail. I think it's one of the best Genesis albums.
It's very Tony Banks.
Very Tony Banks.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
It is.
But even Duke is
amazing record.
And after that, you have Mama, you have Home by the Sea. There's so many good tracks on the newer albums as well. So time to time, I'm listening to Genesis, and they're so. I know probably every note. I listened to it thousands of times, and it's so that was a strange thing for the remaster thing. There was some different vocal takes on it.
The remaster
from Gabriel, and there was,
of the Lamb album.
There was even maybe just two notes, but I think I remember.
You recognize it,
yeah. So
you're a hardcore fan,
yeah, and old King Crimson and even 80s. And sometimes I've never made the driver's license, but if I'm sitting on the other side, just driving
as a passenger,
a passenger, I love the Doors as well.
Doors,
it's very obvious. Summertimes, I love Beach Boys. But driving bicycle and hearing Beach Boys is unbelievable. Guilty pleasure could be Counting Crows. Don't know why.
Crows?
Yeah, but
guilty pleasure. Yeah,
the first album, Round Here. I love Round Here. Okay, and music. Probably for the Sunday noon things, so where you have not to explain why you hear it because it's not Friday evening and other people are around. So I really love Scott Walker.
Okay.
Yeah, the first three and Tilt.
Nice.
This is so good music. It is unbelievably good.
And are you aware of any kind of Brazilian music, or Brazilian artist, band, or not?
Sadly not.
Okay.
But probably are there probably maybe I know them, but I don't know.
You have the big ones like, I don't know, Tom Jobim, Garota de Ipanema, you know?
Yeah.
Ipanima's Girl, of course.
Yeah, sure.
You have Sepultura as the biggest metal band from Brazil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
okay,
you're probably aware of some.
Sure. Yeah. So but sometimes I'm listening also folk singer-songwriters like Nick Drake, Cohen, things like that. Like Riverman is unbelievable good song, and the whole Blue Moon album, Pink Moon is unbelievable.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. So yeah, I think that that would be it for now. I thank you so much for talking with me, talking with us here for the channel. It was a big honor, and I really hope to see you and Tangerine Dream here in Brazil at some time in the future, at the near future.
Hopefully, yes.
Okay. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hope to talk to you again soon at some time. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.